Hey everybody, we are live. Just trying to get everything set up here. So, we can get started here pretty quickly. Hey, there we are. All right, if you have any questions, just jump into the chat and ask away. And if you don't have questions, that's fine. Just watch, enjoy, and comment to your heart's content. I started cutting this cherry wood the other day. You may have been here for the live when I cut all of this stuff up. I'm going from live, pretty much live cherry to 5/4 cherry. And so I still have all of this to do. And yeah, these are the biggest segments, some of them measuring upwards of 5 inches or so. And let me give you a little bit different angle here. All right, that's probably pretty good. All right, and I'll get going. All right. Get some more protective equipment on. All right, and I am going to adjust this back. Not sure the distance that I need quite yet. Get this out of the way and then prepare. I'm just using this little jig here to cut my round logs. So kind of a interesting pattern there. All right, so I've just got this little jig so that I can cut the round pieces on the bandsaw without too much risk of damage to me or anything else. Made this jig out of just some plywood that I had laying around. Just secure it with some screws in the side. And then I want to take off just a sliver on this first pass. We'll call it to right about there. So I'll clamp down. Oh, of course I moved it as I was trying to clamp it. Hopefully that's close to where it was supposed to be. It's probably close enough. All right. So, oh, hey, Cat's Piece. Hey, everyone's back here. Cat's Piece, Mike. Yeah, you have to go to bed soon. That's understandable. We all working late? I'm always working late. Oh, and before you go to bed, Mike, let me show you what I found on why the bandsaw was cutting so slowly the other day. Let me move this back over so I can show you a little bit better first. So I may have mentioned that the drive belt was pretty loose. I don't know if you can actually see the drive belt in the shot there. So I'll just make this stationary over here. So instead of holding it, yeah, so my drive belt was pretty loose. You can see now there's just a little bit of wiggle to it. So what I ended up having to do there was lowering the motor mount. So, the motor belt bolts in right there. So I just had to loosen those bolts and then slide the motor down because that's just the way the mount works. And then what I found is something that someone had told me off of a comment on a video a while back, but I, maybe didn't really remember until I realized this little piece right here, this little metal square key was missing. And so I got it to work before by just taking the set screw and kind of pushing it in far enough to where it was in there. But when I started trying to change the motor mount, I found that the pulley didn't want to stay on because it didn't have that support. And so I was like, oh yeah, I need to find that square key. So I went and got one. It was under $2 at Lowe's, and got it all tightened up. So it's working quite a bit better now. So, all right. So with that said, hopefully I can demonstrate that it's working a lot better now. So. Got my blade guard set too low. That was another thing that I noticed the other day, is that I actually had the blade guard all the way up at the top. So that probably wasn't helping with the flex of the blade and everything, but the drive belt was a much bigger issue, I think. All right. And give yours another look now. Yeah. Everything's working better. Yeah. Cutting a lot better. Sounds better. Yeah. It's working way better than it did before. So now I just need to adjust my fence. So that I'm taking off 1 1/4. Yeah, this should go a lot more quickly than the other night, even though this is arguably much tougher to cut. I was just checking with the moisture meter, and much of this is still showing over 50% moisture, which seems like a lot to me. So pretty green. Robert, thanks for joining. You have a bandsaw like this? Yep. And panel glue up. Oh, Kat, you're moving? All right. Adjust it again. let's see what chat I've missed here. Okay. Moving sucks. Yeah, I hate to move. Robert, you're asking what I've done to my bandsaw? Let's see. So actually quite a bit. It didn't come with a blade. So I bought it used less than a year ago from just this older couple that was moving and didn't want to move it with them. And so it didn't have a blade. So I put in a blade. It didn't have the insert. So I just bought this off of Amazon for, like 10 or 12 bucks, something like that. Probably could have just made a wooden one, but didn't really think about that back then. Let's see, what else? So I had to, anytime you put a new blade on, you need to tune it up. So adjusting the guide bearing here on both above and below, and then these guys right here, the side. I can't think of what they're called, but they help guide it as well. And you want to make sure that these little cubes, if you still have these old cubes, you can actually switch out the guides to something different, but these work. So I'm like, why bother? And there's an assembly like this both above and below. Let me just pop that up and kind of give you a close-up view. So your guide bearing here, I've actually got it a little too far back. I need to adjust that. That should be just behind the blade without touching. And these guys right here, the front of these little cubes, these come in contact with the blade. But you basically want them as close to the blade as possible without touching. And then just a little bit set back from the base of the gullet. Yeah, yours still has the cubes. Okay. You need to get a new screw for the wheel tracking on top for this guide bearing up here. Need a new screw, like this guy right here. And then there's a similar setup down below. Guide bearings and it's pretty dusty in there right now. And let's see if I can adjust the stand here in a way that you can actually see what's going on. Not really. Kind of right there, maybe a little bit. So it's a very similar setup. It'd be a lot easier if I took off the side, but you kind of get the idea. Sounds like you've had yours open already, so you know kind of what's up. All right, so yeah, so I adjusted those, and I think I'll actually adjust them again right now. In order to adjust them, you have to loosen the set screw here to do this part, and there's a set screw on this side for the guide bearing. I've actually got another video a while back about how to do this, but looks like I need to do it anyway, so might as well. So then just pulling it back pulls that guide bearing back, pulling it forward pulls it forward, and I guess I am going to take this case off so that I can manipulate the wheel easier. Always nice. All right. I don't know if you can even see. Am I even in the shot right now? There we go. All right. So when I'm adjusting this, I just like to spin the wheel so that I can see, is this spinning? And if it is spinning, then I just back it off a little bit. If it's not spinning, then I bring it closer. Okay, so that looks like it's done. So I'll just tighten that set screw up again. And here's the set screw for the lower one. So I'm going to loosen him, and then the screw to move him forward and back is just right under the table here. And so I can see him spinning. So I'm just backing him off a little bit until he stops spinning. And then tighten it down. Really easier if I come from over here instead of, I give myself a little bit more. There we go. All right, and then I'll close him up. And then I just put a little magnetic tray from Harbor Freight down there with the Allen wrenches that I commonly use on here, so that I don't have to go searching for them. And then just close it up. And I just have these little clamps, 4 places here to lock it back in. All right. And then this is just a homemade fence that I made. And then Robert, the other big thing, I don't know if you were here when I talked about it earlier, but my belt was pretty loose. And so I lowered the motor to tighten that belt up. And in doing so, I realized that I was missing a square key that goes in right here to secure this pulley. And so I got a new one for pretty cheap. And so yeah, now it's working way better than before. Let's see. All right, Kat, you got to go. That's fine. Have a good night. Thanks for joining us. Mike, you too. And let's see. Screw adjust the blades. Oh, the screw the blade tracking. I came with a fence. Table. Okay. So you need the screw that adjusts the tracking. Gotcha. That's maybe a little bit more involved to find. Let me see on mine. Let's see. Maybe it's pretty simple, but I've buried some screwdrivers here that I was using earlier. So, well, you know what? I'm not going to adjust it because it'll throw everything out of whack. But it looks like it might just be a little flathead screwdriver on mine. I mean, you wouldn't have to use flathead. It might just be a regular screw. So that might be a really easy fix. You just have to get the right size. And unfortunately, I don't know what that size is without pulling it off. But if you remind me later when I'm done with this, I can check that out and just see what size it is and let you know what to get. Also, there's some parts lists for the Craftsman 12-inch bandsaw that, yeah, Loctite it in. You had to heat it up, get it out, messed up. Okay. Okay, so the groove is messed up. So is it just the screw that you need, or is there an issue with where the screw goes in as well? Because if it's messed up where the screw goes in, not just if the threads are messed up, that might be a little bit more involved than just replacing the screw. But just the screw, okay, yeah, that should be a relatively easy fix. But yeah, just maybe after the live, maybe just add a comment asking about the the dimensions of the screw, and I'll try to remember to grade that for you. All right, on to the next here. Let's see. So I needed, you know what? I think that's going to be too small to run another with my jig. So I'm just going to measure, I'm just going to set this to 1 1/4. And clamp it down. I was saying in the last live that I'd like to set up a better fence system so that I don't have to just use these clamps all the time, but the clamps are cheap. I've already got them. So it's a no-cost solution. So I'm just going to remove the screws and run the remaining piece without the jig. And it'll just shave off a little here. So, all right, here goes. So, Robert, how long have you had your Craftsman bandsaw? What have you done with it in the past? Or does it just not get used? And I will pull out the next victim here while you're thinking about that. I'm going to take off the fence here for a second. So all these little protruding branches, I like to just kind of remove those so that they're not in the way while trying to use the jig. And had a bit of an issue there because on one of those cuts, I didn't really have a good grasp of the log, and it wanted to get pulled down by the bandsaw blade. And I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I should be pulled on a little bit better than I was. So my bad on that. All right, so I'm just going to try to position this in a way that I can put some screws in here and lock it down. And I've already got a fair number of screw holes that I've put in here from previous limbs. So shouldn't have to add too many more, I don't think. So, oh, you just haven't really got to use it in the shop for, oh, half a part for about, okay. Yeah, I understand that. We get going on various projects and then don't get around to them for a while, right? So let's see. Let me go about there. So I'll clamp that down. So what do you intend to use the bandsaw for? What do you have like resawing that you want to do? Do you have curvy cuts that you want to make? What's your plan for using it? I was just seeing a lot of shake in the blade as I turned it back on there. I think wow. It's moved quite a bit since just the adjustment earlier. So, okay, I'm actually gonna adjust the tracking on that a little bit. That should bring it more in line with how we have it set up. Actually, I'm going to do a tinge more. The deepest gullet, or the deepest part of the gullet, should be at the crown of the tire. So that's what I'm aiming for. Yeah, and there's still a ton of side-to-side movement there. Let me look at the guides down here. Yeah, I've got these too far back. I was thinking to adjust those earlier and figured it would be fine without adjusting them. And now I'm feeling like that was a mistake. Okay, that's about the right spot. And then I'm also going to adjust the little cubes, whatever those are called. Get those dialed in a little closer. Usually I just like to just tap the blade a little bit so there's a little bit of separation so that they're not rubbing on the blade, but so that they're really close. And then I think I need to do the same down here. All right. And that's better. Still a little bit more side-to-side vibration than I'd like, but as my granddaddy used to say, it's good enough for who it's for. Resawing, prepping for the lathe. Oh, you use the lathe. Cool. What do you like to do on the lathe? Starting to use the lathe. Turned a couple mallets. Cool. What do you have planned in the future? My daughter was telling me the other day that I should get a lathe, and I was like, well, yeah, there's some cool stuff I could make with that, but also really messy. I mean, I've got dust collection on this. It still makes a bit of a mess, but I'll watch those wood turning videos and I'm like, wow, it's a big mess. So maybe it's just not that big of a deal, but want to turn bowls? Yes, they are. Yeah. Yep. And I've got a fair amount of stuff here already that, a bunch of different projects that I've got in my mind and that I've started, and It's like, you know what, let me get through a bunch of the stuff that I've already done, and then if the wood turning thing is still something that I want to pursue, then I'll go that direction. But for now, it's not high on my list of things to do. But I can understand why it would be high on other people's list. It is fun. Yeah. Looks like it. Okay. Need to adjust the distance again. So 3.5 down to 2.25. So did you just start the turning, the wood turning, or is that something you've been doing for a while? All right, so now I get to remove the screws again because I'm down to not enough width to use the jig, because I don't want to run the jig so that those screws hit the blade, because I figure that would be no bueno. So I'm going to take this down to 1 1/4 again, and we'll just clean up anything. I'm not sure if I even have 1 1/4. I don't know if I've got anything thicker than 1 1/4 on this one, but looks like there might be a couple spots anyway. So, yep. Actually, I'll start this way, and there'll be just a little bit of shaving at the beginning and then a little bit more at the end. All right. On to the next board. I just have 2 left. Got this guy who he's a little bit longer, and the other one is a little bit thicker. All right. It's going to be the best way. I think I'm going to take this part off. So I've got that bulge there. I'll just remove him and make it a little easier on myself, I think. I was just reminded, though, of my earlier issue of not supporting the cut, or not supporting the branch or limb or whatever well enough while putting it through. So I was trying to be much better there. So, Robert, have you done any live woodwork, doing anything like this, of taking freshly cut branches and logs and prepping them for drying? And I guess for wood turning, sometimes they like the wood to be green, right? Or maybe I'm misunderstanding that. What's the preferred dryness level? Is it only dry wood that you turn with, or are there some instances where you'd want the green stuff? Okay. I think right about there should be good. Also, we are I'm in Idaho. Wondering what part of the world you're in. I turned a cherry branch to, okay. These green stuff. So was the cherry branch, was that green that you used, or was it already dry? On that pass, West Virginia, cool. Take me home. Yeah, that pass, it seemed to bind up a little bit on the edge. Haven't really seen that yet in this process. So I'm just going to take maybe an eighth or a quarter off so that it's not binding on the side of the branch. It seemed like the blade was not really liking being right next to the branch. So see if that does better. Yeah, it seems to really want to catch the blade. Feels like it's maybe not cutting quite right. And so then when I get down here, you can see there's a lot of burning on the side of the blade there, or on the side of the piece. Feel like maybe I didn't move it over enough. All right, hopefully that'll do it. I don't really want to waste a lot, but I also want everything to be usable. All right, let's see if that'll work. Hopefully. So, struggled a bit on that one, a little bit more than it's been struggling, which is a little concerning because this board is a little thinner, not quite as thick as some of the upcoming boards. So that doesn't pretend particularly well. Well, I only have one upcoming board, so Not like it's going to be a huge deal one way or the other, but hopefully it does okay for the remainder. So you're in West Virginia, Robert. Do you have any, I mean, I know a lot of trees grow there. Do you have any trees on your property that you could utilize for your wood turning? I've got a willow that I want to get rid of, but willow isn't really good for anything as far as I'm told. And then I've got a river birch that I also want to take down. And that one I understand is pretty good for woodworking. So that could be good. But yeah, let me know if you got any trees. And 10 acre. Oh, sweet. 10 acres of forest. What types of trees do you have there that you can harvest? That's got to be sweet. Although that could probably also be a lot of work. Just going down to my 1 1/4 here. I think that, well, actually, you know what? I think maybe I do have room to use the jig one more time. Yeah, I do. So I shouldn't have adjusted that quite as quickly as I did. Actually, maybe not. I think that's going to be close enough that I'd rather not risk running the jig through. I guess I should go where the actual screws are instead of just the empty holes. And lock this back in at 1 1/4. Haven't checked all of it. Poplar, ash, oak, sweet. Sassafras? Is that a hardwood? All right. It is a hardwood. Cool. All right. For all of you who are tuned in, I'm curious: are you watching more because of the cherry wood, more because of the Craftsman bandsaw, or some other reason? So Let me know what kind of content you like to see, and maybe we can do more of it going forward. All right. And this is my last chunk, and it is the thickest. So we'll see how well the bandsaw can keep up with it. All right. You know what? I'm gonna put a new hole in the plywood here, because this hole is a little too far over. Don't think I'd get as good a contact there. I was mostly going with just 2 screws last time, but I figure 3 is a little safer. A little more secure. Woodworking in general. It said you were live. Probably fall back to sleep. Enjoy woodworking. Thanks. Thanks, baby kisses. All right. And all right, let's see. That's probably about right. So I'll lock that in again on the last board. Okay, so woodworking in general and woodworking as a whole. Yeah, woodworking can be pretty cool. Baby Kisses, do you do woodworking yourself? I think I'm subscribed to you, but I don't remember what I've seen on your channel. What in the world? I hear a knocking sound. Oh, I think that's probably just the plywood having some fun. All right. Let's see. Oh, okay. Yeah, so like that. Yes. Goof around with the kids. Yeah. F1 blades used to slide off. I think the rubber on the guides wore out. Yeah, I actually just replaced the tires on mine, and actually just posted a video about that this last week, I think. So, oh, hey, Honey's Handmade, good to see you. Raining to the campsite. In Wisconsin, okay. Weather's good in West Virginia. Robert, as far as what I'm going to make with the wood, that is an awesome question. I don't know. The wood, a friend offered it to me for free. They had cut some down, and I thought, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's going to take at least a year for it to air dry. I was thinking about making my own little kiln and possibly drying it faster. But either way, I'm at least weeks away and probably a year plus away from it being ready. So I figure I've got plenty of time to think about what I want to make with the cherry wood. So I'm not sure. I was thinking over the last couple of days, though, after I started cutting it all in 5/4, that maybe I should have cut it thinner because, maybe I'm not going to, whatever I do, it's probably not going to be using anything that thick. But I think by the time it dries and I clean it up, plane it, probably I'm going to be left with thin enough boards that, I'll appreciate having done it in 5/4, but I'm not sure yet. I figure for the small stuff, I'll probably do, some boxes, some jewelry boxes or something for my daughters. I've got 2 teenage daughters. My wife likes it when I make stuff for her. So who knows? I'll do something with it. Okay. What's the fence? Okay. You did. How did you mill up your walnut? Did you use the table saw or? I'm presuming you're not using your bandsaw for that, Robert. Am I right? Okay, yeah, planer and jointer table saw. Yeah, makes sense. How thick was the walnut? Um, and let's see. Do I attach the wood to the fence? Oh, so I've just got a little jig made up. So um, basically just the plywood and then a little bit of a wedge design there. And then I've got some screws, just 1.25 inch screws going into the side of the wood. And, that keeps it pretty secure. So then when I get down to this length, I don't want to cut too close to those screws, kind of damage the blade a little bit. So I'm going to take this off and then just run this against the face of the fence at my 1.25 inch distance. So I'm going to remove the screws and adjust the fence to my 1.25 distance. And that, I think, will be my final cut before setting all this to dry. But yeah, the little lip that I have at the bottom there with the little wedge, I didn't initially have that as a wedge design, but the other night when I was doing a live, I think it was Cat's Piece that, no, was it, who was it that suggested that? I don't remember. I'm sorry. But somebody suggested that I try doing a wedge design instead of just having the plywood stick out. But part of the reason for that plywood at the base there for that lip was a visual reminder of where the how far the screws were in. So you can see right here, if I were to try and do this now, I'm hitting the blade against the lip. And so that was to remind me, hey, don't do that because you'll hit the screws. So that was part of the reason for that design. Some method to the madness, at least. And there's the other one. All right. So this jig is done for now. I'm not sure if or when I'll use it again. And then I'll just run this straight against the fence. All right, so I got a little bit of burning on that last cut. You kind of see the little bit of burning, which I haven't really had too much of this whole process. But yeah, so these are among the biggest of the boards that I got out of it, and a little bit of the darker wood near the pith there. So what ideas do you have? What can I make out of cherry wood? Guess I can take those off now. Yeah. Work on our 14-inch bandsaw. Yeah. Do you know how much that one is? The Bauer 14-inch? I'll tell you, after the other night, this was really struggling to get through even the smaller stuff over there. And I figured it was just the motor being underpowered. But then, I did the adjustments that I talked about earlier with lowering the motor to put more tension on the drive belt. And then I discovered that I needed to replace that square key to keep the pulley in place. So I had a lot more power and went a lot smoother tonight versus the other night. But not knowing for sure if that would work, I was looking at possibly replacing the motor on this guy, because this is just it's just a half horsepower stock motor that came with it. Who knows how long ago? I don't know when this was built, but I'm guessing probably at least early 80s is when these would have come out. Maybe before that. There's probably a date on it somewhere, but I'll have to look for that later. And let's see, 500 or 600. Yeah. So I paid significantly less than that for this guy. But I'm cheap. So, much to my wife's chagrin. The Bauer 600. Here's pretty wood. Makeup holders. Yeah. You paid $75 for yours. Yeah, I paid less. So, but like I said, it didn't come with the blade or the insert here, or apparently that square square key that I was talking about earlier. So I've had to put some money into it. So this blade, I actually put a fair amount of money into this one. So this is a 1/2-inch carbide tooth blade from Lennox. And so I've intended this kind of as my re-sign blade. And then I've got, I originally got a 1/4-inch Timberwolf blade that worked really well until I wasn't paying very close attention and realized after the fact, after I'd already busted the blade, that my tires were not in place. So they were coming out of place. And anyway, so that's part of why I replaced the tires with some urethane tires recently. So there's been a fair amount of time and money that I've put into it after that initial investment of purchasing the saw itself. So let's see. All right. I think I'm getting pretty close to done for the night. If you have any other questions, concerns, jokes, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Or if it's after the live is concluded, throw them in the comments. Like, subscribe, all the stuff if you haven't already. Yeah, thanks for joining me. I'll close with one more look at some of the cherry wood here. So let me kind of brush it off a little bit. Not too shabby. So, all right, on to drying the wood. I guess I need to paint the ends and all that good stuff. So anyway, have a good night, everyone. Thanks for joining me. And turn this thing off.